Nobody gets my children's fella. Nobody gets my child. Out of the musket, the pine and snow, holding the wings of the red-eyed crow, and watching you crazy ones down below, and nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my children's fella. Nobody gets my child. God is in heaven, but we're on earth, losing three after one. Don't hurt. The time of death is the time of birth, and nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my child.
I'd thought about it for quite a while, and that day at the beach, I told Wendy exactly how I felt. I wasn't sure she really understood. I knew I loved her, and would probably marry her someday, but not now. I just couldn't support her and the kid now. Here I was, after wasting all this time, back at school taking a mechanics course and working at the service station, weekends and nights, just trying to get through it. She had to know I just couldn't take on a baby.
I tried to understand what Bob was saying, but it was another thing to learn to live with it. Bob was my whole world, but deep inside I hated the idea of giving up our baby. Being pregnant had changed everything for me. Sometimes the whole situation seemed unreal. But Bob wanted to go on as if nothing had changed. Finally, I decided maybe he was right. You couldn't give up everything for a child. So we agreed to give the baby up for adoption.
God is in heaven, but we're on earth, losing three after one. Don't hurt. The time of death is the time of birth, and nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my
As soon as I saw Jamie, I knew there was no way I could part with him. To me, he was the most beautiful baby in the world. All I could think of was how tiny and helpless he was, and how much I wanted him and loved him already. I told myself Bob would feel the same way about him, and all three of us would make it together.
When I saw Jamie in the window, I really couldn't feel he was a part of me, my son. But I knew right away that Wendy would never give him up. So I bought this toy and I went to see Wendy. I felt mixed up about everything, but loving her. To make things easier, I told her we would keep Jamie and make a go of it.
I didn't have a thing ready for Jamie, so my social worker suggested a foster home for him, while I made plans to move into a single-parent co-op home. Mrs. Powell, the foster mother, was really nice, and Bob and I visited Jamie every few days. Boy, was I scared about looking after him. Like I didn't know what to do first. He seemed so delicate. I thought it would be the end of him if I made one wrong move. Mrs. Powell kept telling me that Jamie was a good baby, and that once he was with me, my so-called mother's instinct would take over.
I was in a panic during those visits. I couldn't even hold Jamie properly, and when I thought of keeping him, it really hit me hard. But I thought of Wendy and kept telling myself we would work things out.
I wasn't too sure how I'd like living in a co-op home, but it turned out to be the best thing I could have done. At least I wasn't all alone, and the homemaker and the other girls really helped me out and taught me a lot about looking after Jamie. I even finished my grade 12 by correspondence.
I was beginning to feel a part of things, and I'd look at Jamie and feel kind of proud of myself. I started liking him and thinking, gee, he's mine. He's a part of me.
After a while, though, things weren't so great at the co-op home. The two girls I felt closest to moved out, and as I gained confidence in myself as a mother, it seemed like everyone else was interfering. We all had different personalities, and I just got tired of trying to get along with so many people. I guess I was really ready to be on my own. Bob and I talked it over. At first I thought maybe I should move back home with my parents, but I soon dropped that idea. Mom was so bossy and so critical over how I handled Jamie. You would have thought he was her baby. Even when we were just visiting, she was always telling me what to do, and I knew I wouldn't be able to take that for long. Besides that, I couldn't forget how ashamed they were of us in front of their friends and even the neighbors. Dad especially made me feel so guilty all the time. And did they ever hate Bob?
Finally, Wendy said she'd find a place of her own. That was unreal. Either they didn't want kids, or else when they found out we weren't married, they didn't want a girl like Wendy. Man, it was something else, until at last we found a place. Well, something that wasn't too bad.
The next thing was money, and welfare was the only way out. I would have gone to work, but there weren't any daycare centers for kids under 3. Besides, Jamie was so young, I just had to look after him myself. But being on welfare was lousy. It's so degrading. You feel like you're begging for every little thing. It was like a slap in the face.
They really gave me the gears about supporting Wendy and Jamie. Here I was, going like hell at everything. My job, my course, the works. I was really trying to help her, giving her all the money I could. But oh no, for those welfare people, it wasn't good enough. I was scared, man, and I was starting to wonder where all the fun I used to have had disappeared to.
In the meantime, I was going to weekly meetings at the agency for single mothers. Our kids were being looked after by volunteers while we mothers met and talked about our own spaces. Mine was really getting bad. I told the girls how lonely I was. There were no other young mothers around my place. I couldn't manage on welfare. We were always short of money and things we needed. It was always a hassle. Whenever I did try to go out, half the time the babysitter didn't show up. Worst of all, I just knew that Bob wanted out. He didn't come around as much. Whenever he did, all we did was argue. He'd finished his course, and I wanted to know when we were going to get married. I accused him of not loving us. He'd just get mad and call me a nag and Jamie a big burden. Finally, he just stopped coming around.
I was thinking about it all the time. It was one hell of a mess. My mom and dad were both at me with their advice.
You and Wendy both knew what you were doing. It's your child as well as hers. Why aren't you living up to your responsibility by being a proper husband and father to them?
Now look, fellows can't always control their needs that well. She should have been more careful. You've helped her as much as you could. It wasn't your idea to keep the baby, was it?
I guess I tended to agree with Dad more, thinking he knew what it was all about, remembering his own youth. It was Wendy who really wanted Jamie. I wasn't even sure after all this whether I loved her or not. I felt responsible, but I never told her to keep Jamie. Things were getting really heavy, and all she did was push for marriage, marriage, marriage. We didn't have any fun anymore. It was just a drag. I started hating the whole mess I was in. I dated this girl, and I really enjoyed myself. So I made my decision, and I got out.
Once Bob left, I just quit trying. Mom and Dad had the I told you so attitude and were no help at all, and I got more and more depressed. I'd always thought Bob would marry me, and I just couldn't cope on my own. Everything was closing in. Even Jamie wasn't so great to look after anymore. I'd take it all out on him, yell at him, hit him. I just didn't care. The agency finally had to suggest they take him into care while I tried to sort my life out.
God is in heaven, but we're on earth, losing three after one don't hurt. The time of death is the time of birth, and nobody gets my time. Nobody gets my child. Nobody gets my
It took a long time, but the pieces slowly began to fall into place. My social worker suggested I might want to see a psychiatrist. I did, and he helped me to understand myself and pull myself out of my depression. I got onto the Welfare Opportunities Program and did volunteer work in a preschool nursery. I was really surprised at how much there was to learn about kids. I looked forward to going there every week, and things seemed to be more worthwhile. But most of all, I began to miss Jamie and want him back with me. I started visiting him in his foster home and taking him out sometimes. We'd often go to my parents, who had come around a lot when they saw Bob was gone, and I had been through so much by myself. My happiest day was February 12th. After what seemed like forever, I had Jamie back home with me.
Where do you go from here? Holding him tight, you choke back your fear. You have flown so high, touched the sky, fallen so low, trying to ward off each blow. But now you're together. That's one thing certain. As you wait for the opening of your life's next curtain, you'll build on the joys and fight all the tears. But where do you go from here?